Former Labour MP Lord Janner is too ill to face charges of child sex abuse. And the missing student, Karen Buckley. Police discover a body and a 21-year-old man is arrested. That's next.
Tonight, on the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Colditz, Arthur Smith walks in his father's footsteps in the notorious prison.
And the band of the Coldstream Guards will be honouring all World War II prisoners with a performance of The Great Escape.
You have the honour of preparing lunch today for the Red Arrows.
Whoa, look at that. Beautiful dish. Our 5 guests are going to perform an autopsy on every single plate.
It looks like a quite ambitious menu, actually.
Let's go.
MasterChef, the semi-finals, tomorrow at 8:30 on BBC One. 3 brand new series come to BBC Two.
This is a real interview process. Delicious.
With the biggest prize in gardening.
We're in with the big boys and there isn't any space for mistakes.
Chelsea is only a short step away now.
And the secrets behind making our favourite foods.
We're making 55,000 chocolates an hour.
Let them feel the heat while you chill out.
Tools down, time is up.
Make a date for 8 every Monday to Thursday, starting with Alex Polizzi, Chefs on Trial, Monday at 8 on BBC Two.
This is BBC One. Now the news with Fiona Bruce.
A Labour peer won't stand trial for over 20 allegations of child sexual abuse because he's suffering from dementia. The Crown Prosecution Service says Avril Janner is unfit to appear in court. The police react with anger on behalf of alleged victims.
Most, if not all, of those people are really upset. They're struggling to come to terms with the decision that has been made.
The CPS admit they made mistakes and could have brought charges against the former Leicester MP back in the 1990s. Also tonight, police find the body of the missing student, Karen Buckley, on farmland near Glasgow. A man has been arrested. The owner of Express Newspapers, Richard Desmond, donates £1 million to UKIP. Pressure grows on the EU to help the migrants as they pour into Italy. 900 just today, and more feared dead. And England build a commanding lead against the West Indies in the first test in Antigua.
On BBC London, the tax billions leaving London for other parts of the UK. We ask who's fighting the capital's corner. And caught on camera the moment a bus crashes after its driver loses control.
Good evening. No charges are to be brought against the former Labour MP Lord Janner, who's been accused of sexually abusing children over a period of 30 years. The Crown Prosecution Service said the evidence against him was extremely serious, totalling 22 potential charges of sexual or indecent assault. But now, Avril Janner, aged 86, is suffering from dementia and, according to the CPS, is unfit to stand trial. The police and alleged victims have expressed anger at the decision. Lord Janner's family insist he's innocent of any wrongdoing. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Tom Simons.
Lord Avril Janner, MP and peer, saw the horrors of the Holocaust, campaigned for it to be remembered. But this political veteran has been followed for 25 years by allegations which haven't been forgotten, that he abused children. Today it's been decided he should never face trial, despite the evidence.
The evidential side was not the issue, it was where the public interest lay. These were serious allegations which took part over some time, an abuse of power and trust. Balanced against that was the fact that the suspect would not be able to play any part in the proceedings.
A decision resulting in a furious reaction from survivors of child abuse.
The evidence against him and the many victims and witnesses that have come forward would have made it a very compelling case to bring before the courts, and I'm astounded that the CPS appear to have made this wrong decision.
The allegations against Avril Janner have their roots here, in one of Leicester's leafy suburbs. Now a smart housing development, it was once a notorious children's home, boarded up after a scandal. This was where one of Britain's worst paedophiles, Frank Beck preyed on young people. During his trial, one man alleged that there was another abuser too, Avril. The then MP was forced to deny it in Parliament.
There was, of course, not a shred of truth in any of the allegations of criminal conduct made against me during the trial by Beck or by his accomplice Winston.
There were two more investigations. In 2002, police stopped their own inquiries. In 2007, prosecutors said there wasn't enough evidence. Only now is there enough evidence, but it's too late. 4 medical experts have decided that Lord Janner has Alzheimer's and is not fit to stand trial. Leicestershire Police is reviewing why the 2002 inquiry stalled, but said today's decision was wrong and a blow to alleged victims.
They're really, really upset, distressed, and many of them are, for want of a better description, sort of in a bad place.
Your force made mistakes, didn't it?
I don't know that. I want to understand that better.
Lord Janner's family described him as a man of great integrity and high repute, with a long and unblemished record, and entirely innocent of any wrongdoing.
Tom Simons is in Leicester, Lord Janner's former constituency. And Tom, this is certainly proving to have been a controversial decision by the CPS.
Yeah, Fiona, the Crown Prosecution Service insists it's taken independent legal advice, and was it not for Lord Janner's health, there would have been prosecutions. Now, the police here have told me that the first they heard about his health problems was in December 2013 when they raided his house. Interestingly, we've seen House of Lords expenses sheets that show that Lord Janner was able to visit the House of Lords 12 times that month. But Alzheimer's is a worsening condition, and the CPS insists, the medical experts say, that there is no suggestion he is, quote, putting it on. Now, one alleged victim said tonight that the decision was a disgrace. He said it wasn't about prison and about guilt. He said it was about being believed after so long being told that he was lying. Sophie.
Tom, thanks very much. Police have found the body of the missing Irish student Karen Buckley on farmland close to Glasgow. She disappeared at the weekend during a night out with friends in the city. A 21-year-old man has been arrested and will appear in court tomorrow. Well, Laura Bicker is in Mulgai, near where Karen's body was found. And Laura, this is the last news her parents will have wanted to hear.
Well, this is the story we really didn't want to tell. After 5 days of pleas, 5 days of prayers, the body of Karen Buckley was discovered at this farm in the early hours of this morning. Forensic teams have spent quite a bit of the day at this site as the investigation continues. And tomorrow, a 21-year-old man is expected to appear in court in connection with the student's death.
This was Karen Buckley just hours before she disappeared. A student on a night out with friends. And this is where police discovered her body, on a farm on the outskirts of Glasgow. Today, a statement was read on behalf of her family, who are heartbroken.
Karen was our only daughter, cherished by her family and loved by her friends. She was an outgoing girl who travelled the world, where she met lots of people and thoroughly enjoyed her life. We will miss her terribly.
Those who'd hoped and prayed for a different outcome came to pay their respects.
Everybody I've spoke to, they're sick about it, they're just pure. Sick in the stomach. That's why everybody in Glasgow's feeling.
Karen Buckley was last seen on a night out at this club in the West End of the city. She was pictured on CCTV walking away with a man on Sunday morning. Police discovered her handbag miles away in this park, one of several sites searched as part of this investigation. At morning mass in Mornabbey in County Cork, where the Buckley family live, they had hoped for better news.
It's every parent's worst nightmare, isn't it? Do you know, it's so bad.
Back on the outskirts of Glasgow, the inquiry continues. For now, though, all thoughts are with this young woman, a much-loved daughter and friend. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Mulgai.
The owner of Express Newspapers, Richard Desmond, has donated £1 million to UKIP. It comes just a day after UKIP launched its election manifesto. Well, let's talk to our UKIP campaign correspondent, Robin Brandt, who's outside the headquarters of Express Newspapers. Well, this will be very welcome to Nigel Farage, won't it?
very welcome halfway through this election campaign. Expect the UKIP leader to have a big grin on his face tonight in that TV debate on the BBC later. It comes at a time when the coffers are near empty for UKIP. And halfway through this campaign, it's no surprise either. Mr Desmond has long supported UKIP and Nigel Farage. The Daily Express, one of the papers he owns and is produced out of this building here tonight, has long supported him. Any readers of that paper, there are around 500,000 of them, will be well acquainted with anti-European Union politics. In a statement tonight, Mr Desmond, he said that he believes UKIP is a party for ordinary British people. Responding, Nigel Farage has praised the donation of £1 million, and it is £1 million cash, we're told, as a very brave decision, something he hopes others will now go on to repeat.
I'm sure he does. Robin, thank you very much. Well, news of that bumper donation to UKIP's coffers comes just ahead of the live election debate tonight, this time hosted by the BBC. The leaders of 5 of Westminster's opposition parties will go head-to-head: Labour, UKIP, SNP, Plaid Cymru and the Greens. But the Prime Minister for the Conservatives and his deputy for the Lib Dems will be absent. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
Tonight, the election's focus will be here, in Westminster, over the road from the Abbey. A televised debate featuring 5 opposition party leaders who'll be lining up at their podiums like this.
I'm looking forward to the opportunity to go in there and put in the case again for Wales.
My tactic, to be sweet and reasonable as always.
What I'm focusing on is getting the message of the Green Party, the message of real change across the electorate.
There will be opening statements and questions from the audience, but neither David Cameron nor Nick Clegg will be here to take part. This is one in a sequence of 4 debate programmes eventually agreed between the political parties and broadcasters. But the Labour leader ridiculed the Cameron-sized hole in tonight's lineup.
I think if you're applying for the job of Prime Minister, the very least the British people expect is for you to turn up to the job interview.
Ed Miliband will be standing here tonight, and the debate could certainly be a risk for him. Team Cameron will definitely be hoping that the Labour leader is rounded upon and roughed up by all the other parties here. But it's an opportunity for Ed Miliband too, because he's the only party leader here tonight who could be Prime Minister after May the 7th, and that gives him a chance to convince voters that he's up to the job, while the current occupant of number 10 sits it out.
But anyway, that's the end of the party political broadcast.
The Tory leader wasn't putting his feet up today, here on the stump in West Yorkshire. But during the long debate negotiations, David Cameron was clear he would take part in just one televised debate with other party leaders, and that had already happened. Today, he explained why he wouldn't be there this evening.
Tonight's debate is part of the deal that was done to unblock the lockdown. I'm delighted that I played a role unblocking that lockdown.
Nick Clegg was warning about a post-election UKIP Conservative tie-up today. And that might have cheered the Lib Dem leader up, who is not happy about his exclusion from this evening's contest.
I know, of course, David Cameron didn't want to be part of the debate, but I don't see why I should be prevented from being part of that debate and speaking up for what we've done in coalition.
But no party got exactly the set of debates they wanted, and for leaders like the SNP's Nicola Sturgeon, they're proving a valuable platform for reaching millions of voters.
Nicola Sturgeon has a further welcome opportunity to share the message of the Scottish National Party with a wider UK audience.
But more importantly, the debate here will test and probe the leaders' policies. And with an indecisive election result looking likely, any of them might play a part in forming the next government. Ben Wright, BBC News, Westminster.
And you can see the BBC election debate 2015 here on BBC One at 8 o'clock tonight. Well, as we were hearing there, the Liberal Democrat leader Nick Clegg has warned of a right-wing threat to Britain. He suggested that if David Cameron fails to win an outright majority at the election, he could effectively be forced to the right by UKIP, the DUP and his own backbenchers. Mr Clegg has dubbed the potential alliance Blue Kip. Our Liberal Democrat campaign correspondent Arif Ansari reports.
We all know this happened, but could this? A Tory government without a majority propped up by UKIP. The Liberal Democrats say it could, and they've come up with a name for it.
Blue Kip, a bloc of right-wingers from UKIP, the Conservatives and the DUP that could hold the balance of power. There is a very real danger that Nigel Farage and his friends could hold David Cameron to ransom.
The Lib Dem leader was in Cheadle today. It's one of 15 seats the party believes are at risk to the Tories. But Nick Clegg proved that he still appeals to some.
You're better looking in real life.
Oh!
But not everybody is quite so attracted, so Nick Clegg is dealing a deck of cards illustrated with quotes from politicians from UKIP and Northern Ireland's largest unionist party, the DUP. The Liberal Democrat tacticians on this bus are worried that their supporters may be deserting in marginal areas because they're worried about Ed Miliband doing a deal with the SNP. So this website and these playing cards are deliberately designed to scare them into thinking that David Cameron doing a deal with the DUP or this guy would be worse. Take another tight seat, Oxford West and Abingdon. Do their appeals for tactical voting work here?
I don't want a Conservative Party influenced by UKIP, and I want to remain part of Europe.
Unfortunately, in my ward, there is no point in voting either Labour or Green because they're so way behind that a tactical vote has to be what it is.
But while Nick Clegg's focusing on the threat from the Tories, his bigger problem might be how much support he's lost to Labour. Arif Ansari, BBC News, Cheadle.
The time is coming up to 6:15. Our top story this evening. The Labour peer Lord Janner won't stand trial for over 20 allegations of child sexual abuse because he's suffering from dementia. And still to come, how unprecedented pressure on primary school places in England means 1 in 10 children may not get into their first choice.
Later on BBC London, they started riding in Peckham and now have their sights on the Olympics in Rio. 2 young Londoners prepare to take on the best in the world. And after the recent sunny spell, some cloudier weather is on the way. We'll have the details at 6:30.
Dozens more migrants are feared to have drowned after reports that another boat carrying people from North Africa has capsized in the Mediterranean. Earlier this week, 400 people lost their lives on another boat attempting the crossing. The numbers are staggering. Around 900 more migrants arrived in Italy today, and it's thought more than 10,000 have come ashore there in the last week, as Caroline Hawley reports.
The numbers are unprecedented, a seemingly unstoppable surge of desperate people trying to get to Europe. Most are still making it, but close to 1,000 would-be migrants have now died so far this year alone. They're fleeing misery in the Middle East and Africa, putting their lives in the hands of human smugglers. Among the survivors of the latest mass drowning in the Mediterranean is a 12-year-old girl who lost her entire family. Men on the upper deck had apparently rushed to one side of the boat to flag down rescuers, causing it to capsize. These twin brothers from Syria travelled to Libya to get on the boat on which so many died. They say they're lucky to be alive.
We were 15 hours at sea. God protected us. We thought we were going to die. We had children on board and were not able to save them.
They wait for medical checks on a football pitch. Italy wants help to cope with a crisis no one knows how to contain. This is the European Union's Operation Triton, aimed at controlling territorial waters. Late last year, it replaced an EU-funded Italian search and rescue mission, which Britain and other countries said was encouraging people to take to the seas. But aid groups say they're coming anyway, that there's a moral imperative now to act.
We can't stand by and watch people drowning off Europe's shores. What we need the EU to do is relaunch the rescue missions. We need them to fund search and rescue operations in the Mediterranean so that children aren't drowning trying to reach safety in Europe.
This afternoon, more migrants arrived in Italy with more horrific accounts of what happened at sea. The Italian police have arrested a group of Muslim men accused of throwing Christians overboard in an argument over religion. But despite the dangers, in Libya, thousands more wait to attempt the crossing, risking their lives. Caroline Hawley, BBC News.
Parents across England are finding out which primary school their child has got into. The highest birth rate since the 1950s and immigration have put unprecedented pressure on school admissions. 500,000 places have been allocated today. A large number of parents are likely to be disappointed, with as many as 1 in 10 not getting into their first choice of school. And in some areas, many more will have missed out. Our education correspondent Gillian Hargreaves has spent the day in the London borough of Harrow, which has seen one of the biggest rises in the number of primary school-aged children in England.
One at a time. All right, set bigger. It's a bit like the old woman who lived in a shoe. There are so many children wanting a place at primary school, some councils are struggling to know what to do. The primary school next to this nursery, Newton Farm, has the best results for 11-year-olds in the country, which means it's very popular with parents. These 3- and 4-year-olds only have a 1 in 9 chance of getting in this September.
Basically, if we can take all of our children in the nursery, I only have a few places left for the rest of the children around the community. But unfortunately, I can't take more than 60 students.
And that's even after they've doubled the size of their reception year, with more building work to come.
Need some help? Quick!
It's an anxious time for mums and dads, who are effectively in competition with each other.
We did put in a few more options, but ultimately the aim is to get into Newton Farm because we do feel that the best start is very good, very important for the child's future.
Britain's burgeoning birth rate, the highest since the 1950s, and immigration have contributed to a shortage of places in big cities like London and Leeds, but also in leafier counties like Oxfordshire, where some parents have been bitterly disappointed.
We had 3 choices. She wasn't allocated a place at our first choice, Chiltern Village Primary School, or at our second or third choice either.
The numbers are mind-boggling. Since 2010, 300,000 extra places have had to be created in England's primary schools, and that's cost the government £7 billion. But it's predicted that 880,000 more children are set to arrive in school in the next 10 years. It'll be a real challenge finding the money for them for the next Education Secretary. The problem has been in the making for years. The birth rate started to go up in 2001, but thousands of school places were being cut as the population grew. Then the government changed the rules, making all new schools academies and free schools, which means councils can no longer build their own.
The children that are in our primary schools now are inevitably going to go on to secondary schools, so we're going to start needing more secondary places at the same time as needing more primary places. It's a potential massive crisis.
The Newton Farm children found out at tea time if they'd got a place. Mr Vujaraju's daughter was unsuccessful. Gillian Hargreaves, BBC News.
The NHS is facing a substantial financial problem, which politicians are ignoring in the election campaign, according to the former head of the service. Sir David Nicholson, who retired last year, has told the BBC the NHS in England is accruing large deficits, which will become crystal clear later this year. Here's our health editor, Hugh Pym.
A new hospital under construction, the Royal Liverpool. But with money tight and rising numbers of patients, there's a debate about how the NHS as a whole should build for the future. Bricks and mortar won't be enough. Now the former boss of NHS England has warned of a severe squeeze across the service later this year.
It will become crystal clear the scale and nature of the financial hole that the NHS is facing now. And part of the issue for people is recognising that. I've not heard in most of the conversations that politicians are having at the moment about the election about what they're going to do about that financial hole.
His comments have fuelled the intense debate between parties over how much money they'll commit to the health service long term. NHS chiefs in England say an extra £8 billion a year above inflation is needed by 2020, as well as sweeping efficiency savings.
Although £8 billion is a lot of money in any normal sense of the word, what politicians need to recognise is that for the health service it represents a really tight funding settlement, and it won't allow them to commit to lots of new improvements to the service. It's about keeping the show on the road.
To ensure the health needs of today's working generation can be met as it grows older may well require doing things very differently. It's more than about just money. In that sense, with an increasing and ageing population, the NHS faces the same challenges as all leading international health systems. The NHS plan for England already involves radical changes, such as new organisations offering combined GP and hospital services, reducing hospital bed use with more treatment in care homes, and a bigger focus on tackling obesity, smoking and alcohol abuse.
We need to see much more investment in GPs, nurses in the community, social workers to support people to live at home in the community to avoid expensive and often inappropriate hospital treatment, to get more value for the scarce resources we put into health and social care.
Reconstructing the NHS over the next 5 years will be a huge task, but the demand for health care won't stop rising, and the challenges associated with that will remain well after the next general election. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Well, to find out where the parties stand on the NHS, you can check out their policies by visiting bbc.co.uk/election 2015 and select the relevant section. Northern Ireland's Alliance Party has launched its general election manifesto. The party, which secured its first MP in 2010, says it set out a bold, radical and realistic vision of what Northern Ireland could be.
Alliance has a completely different vision for the future of Northern Ireland from other people. We want to build a united community, a shared future for all our people, not merely manage the kind of divisions of the past. That's why we need Alliance MPs working in Westminster with the government and other parties to ensure that we put forward the necessary reforms.
Alan Barnes, the pensioner who was mugged outside his house and then given thousands of pounds in online donations to help him buy a new home, has today been given the key and moved into his new property. The 67-year-old from Gateshead was too afraid to return to his house after the attack in January this year. In cricket, England are moving towards a winning position in the first test against the West Indies in Antigua. A few minutes ago, Gary Ballance reached a century, with England's lead heading towards 400. From Antigua, here's Joe Wilson.
Go on. In downtown St John's, the play was progressing passionately. This is Wari, a game of thought and history which Antiguans link back to their West African ancestry.
Ideologically, it's very similar to chess.
Well, the same is often said about cricket. Thursday morning was all about bold moves. Gary Ballance getting to 50 with this boundary. Joe Root was really motoring. His 50 took just 68 balls, all extending England's lead. Quick runs means taking risks. Root out. Well, it happens. Today's play was a test of bravery.
Well, this character is a duppy. It's a kind of manifestation of an evil spirit, a bad dream, if you like. England must not be afraid of their recent failures.
Forget fragile confidence. England wanted West Indies batting again as soon as possible, so score as rapidly as possible. It comes naturally to Ben Stokes. He expressed himself. England led by 328 at lunch, and maybe all those recent demons were in retreat. Joe Wilson, BBC News, Antigua.
Right, time for a look at the weather. Helen Willits is here. Hi, Helen.
Hi there, Fiona. Not quite as warm as there, but at 22. Not bad today across the country. 22 in the south, so not as dramatic as yesterday. Only 8 degrees in Scarborough. That's because we're sat under the cloud here, and actually to the north of that band of cloud, that's where the cold air is sitting. But interestingly, we've had this line, this lumpy line of cloud in the south, and we saw earlier that Hugh had a little bit of rain actually at Westminster, and there could be a few sharp showers in the south just for the next few hours before they start to fizzle out. So the night is again quiet and dry for most parts. In the north again, it's cold, so gardeners beware. We could see some rural frost. Not so much of an issue in the south because we've the more cloud, and also we've got more breeze here, and that will be really noticeable tomorrow. Really quite a squeeze in those winds across southern counties. So I think tomorrow, finally, even in the south, we'll start to feel considerably cooler, with a few showers potentially initially, and then a few showers in Scotland. But for most of us, still 14 or 15 if you're outside the wind. But as we saw today in Scarborough, it was only 8 degrees. So again, along the North Sea coast, the sun may well shine tomorrow. But we can only expect temperatures to get to between 8 and 10 degrees Celsius. So it is a bit chilly. You will need to have the jumper on, I think, here during the next couple of days. But as I say, it's fine and it's dry. But why is it so cold? It's cold because at this time of year, the sea temperatures are about as low as they get. So if you're dragging a wind in off the sea, you can't expect the temperatures to get much more than 8 or 9 degrees. But very usable weather. Lovely day on Saturday. Keen wind, though. Probably gale force along the south coast, particularly the southwest, will really take the edge off the temperatures. But dry, bright, fantastic for getting out and about. Lots of sunshine. Possibly a bit more cloud in the east on Sunday, and still that nagging wind in eastern and southern areas. But outside that, some lovely weather to be found, and fine and dry anyway, Fiona.
Helen, thanks very much. That's all from the BBC News at 6. It's goodbye from me, and on BBC One, we can join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
On the programme tonight, the billions in taxes leaving London to support the rest of the country. But should we keep more of the money made here?
London is subsidising the rest of the country to more of an extent than it has done in the rest of the history.
We'll hear from the three main parties about their plans for the economy, also tonight. Caught on camera the moment an out-of-control bus smashes into the back of a car, injuring 3 people. A warning against swimming in the capital's lakes and rivers following the death of a teenager on Hampstead Heath. Plus,
I'd quite like it to go to somebody who's really in a bad situation, that it might help them.
buying into good causes, the new show bringing audience participation to a whole new level. Hello and welcome to BBC London News with me, Riz Latif. Ask Londoners what the single most important issue is in the coming election, and many will say the economy. We know there's been less pay, set against inflation anyway, over the last few years. But London is booming, jobs are increasing, and now the capital is contributing record amounts of tax, £34 billion a year to be precise, to help the rest of the country. In a moment, we'll be asking politicians from the three main parties if the capital gets a fair deal. After this report from our political editor, Tim Donovan.
There has been a London success story in creating jobs, and key to it has been the digital economy. Mubi is a Netflix-style streaming service for the art house film lover. It's just shifted its global HQ here to London. The boss notes that venture capitalists this year invested 20 times more money in tech startups than just 5 years ago.
It's an incredible, vibrant city, access to talent, access to capital. And the whole regulatory and legal framework and environment is very good to start up and set up and grow a company at our size.
But if the mood has been good in some sectors, across London's economy as a whole, wages have remained low and other problems have become apparent, like skills shortages. In construction, those shortages are acute across most trades, and it's holding up the building of the tens of thousands of new homes London needs. 7,000 building apprentices came through the system last year. It's a fraction of what's wanted.
We need to employ at least 20% more young people to fill those jobs. I'd like to see, I think, between 30 and 40,000 construction apprentices a year. It sounds a lot, but I think as an industry, you know, it's an ageing industry.
Business organisations are now reporting growing concerns from firms about attracting employees as house prices and rents soar. And yet now London's economy is supporting the rest of the country more than ever. With 500,000 new jobs added in 5 years and its status as a global financial centre maintained despite the crash, the tax receipts are flowing in. But is the government spending enough of those on